Hey everyone, this is Justin from DAX Noob, and this is the first video in a series titled DAXing with DAX Noob. The purpose is for me just to walk through answering or how I answer um, uh, DAX questions, whether it be on Reddit or the Fabric community forums, and just like what's my thought process, what am I looking for when I'm trying to answer DAX questions, and hopefully you find it helpful. So the first question that we're going to cover is this one from Blue White 3699. They say, "Hi experts, I would expect the forecast total selected forecast to be included in the forecast year-to-date value for March 25th, as we have not yet posted March 25th actual values. So February 25th and March 25th are showing the same value, which is incorrect." So it's a C image. So let's take a look at what they're saying. Okay, so it looks like here they're saying that for the forecast year to date, we should not expect to see the same 382,000 number for both February and March, which it looks like that makes sense because um, if it's truly like a year to date number and we're seeing this forecast, it looks like, yeah, it is not being added to the previous running total. So something is going wrong here. All right, so let's return. All right, so the sample file is attached. I would expect the forecast, fiscal year forecast to work as the fiscal budget value works. Okay, sweet. So let's take a look at the file. So I did take a look at this before, but I'll walk you through some of the things that I was thinking when I first looked at this problem. Right. So first, what I would want to do is take a look at the measure that's giving us issues. So this forecast year to date. So if I look over here and click on the visual, so I can see where the measures are. I don't see a measure with that particular name here. So what you can do is go to the build tab and look for the problem measure, and then you can look and get the actual measure name from there. Okay, so it's on the measures table. It's the YTD Forecast Full Year measure. So let's go here. All right. So when I saw this, the first thing I thought was, all right, so we have a calculate and this total YTD function. So this total YTD function is actually syntax sugar for a different way of writing this, which I actually prefer. So I'm going to write it in the other way. So it would be whatever measure you're trying to calculate, and then you are doing a dates YTD. So we have some measure, and we're going to change the filter context to be the entire list of dates year to date. So let's look at this. And so we always want to format our measures. Like SQL BI says, if it's not formatted, it's not DAX. So here, this is what we're doing. So we're getting this forecast value, and we are modifying the filter context to give me all of the dates going back to the beginning of the fiscal year, which ends in March. Right. So if I click this again, we should see that the values do not change. I just think that this is a little bit easier to read, and it's a little bit more explicit about what's happening. So if the forecast measure was a simple sum, I would expect this to work. So let's take a deeper dive and look at what the forecast measure is doing. So I'm going to search for that measure. And again, first thing that I want to do is I want to format so that I can better understand what's going on. So another thing too, again, what I noticed is that there's this call of the total actuals measured twice, and so best practice, it's not always the case where this is going to be more performant, but oftentimes it is to have the measure call only happen once. And so depending on how the measure is written, there's certain optimizations. Um, built into the system, but most of the time it's best practice to kind of call this one. So what I'll do is I'll do total amount is equal total amount, total forecast is equal to this total forecast, and then my result will be this total amount here, total amount here. Oh, I went to write actuals, and then I'll replace the reference here. So again, let me explain that a little bit better of why I did that. Sometimes when you write, when you call the same measure multiple times, it's evaluated multiple times. And so with this size of data set, it's pretty small, so it's really not going to make a difference. But with the way that this DAX is structured, um, uh, assigning it to a variable can sometimes guarantee that it will only be evaluated once. Again, there are certain nuances, and it's one of those it depends questions of when you want to use variables like this. But in this situation, it would be better to have the variable call the total actuals once, so that then you can just reference that variable and subsequently in the rest of the measure. All right. So because this is not just a simple sum, I think I understand like what is going wrong with this, and let me show you why. Oh, so I'm going to take the entire definition of this measure and go back to our year-to-date version. And so what's happening is I'm going to replace the measure reference to with the measure definition. And so when we call this calculate and modify the filter context, we're modifying the filter context for all of these measures here. And so what we're essentially saying is if the total actuals year to date is blank, then give me the year to date total selected forecast value, else give me the year to date actuals value. And so if we return this total actuals year to date value now, we'll see that it's actually giving us the same exact number as before. And so what this is saying is that the year to date value, the actuals, is not blank. And so it's never going to include anything in this total selected forecast column. And because even though there's no actuals for this month, there's still actuals year to date for that month. And so what we want to do is we want to obviously do something different. So what we can do is instead, if we had a table of year-month values with their associated forecasted values, then we can just sum up those forecast values for each month up until the point, like up until the current month. So let's think about how we can do this. So one, I'm going to comment all this code out so that we can maybe use it later as a reference. And I'm going to start with defining, well, I won't do a variable yet because we might not need it. So one, I want to get the values of the year months. So I have a couple options. It looks like I have year month sort. I have fiscal month, maybe month year. I actually prefer to use integer representations of year months. They're just easier to work with. Typically they're ascending, so you can always do like -1, +1 if you need to modify and like move around months. So just for the sake of simplicity, I'm gonna use this month year sort value. And so now I actually want to then I'm going to add a column here, and I want to get what was that forecast value for the given year month that we're going to be iterating over. And so I'm going to create a temporary column. I'm going to call it total forecast, and my calculation can just be a call to the forecast measure. And so as written here, this actually won't work because let me show you. So first, then like I said before, once we have these year months and the forecast values, we should be able to then add, like, let's say what happens if we add them up. So I'm going to add this up, and if I look at the result, it looks like we're actually just getting the forecast value over and over again. And that's because when we called this values of the month year sort, it's only going to give us the month year sort values that are in the current filter context, which in this case would be all the month year sort values for March 25th or of 25 or February of 2025. And so we're not actually getting for each individual cell that we're calculating all of the year months going back to the beginning of the fiscal year. And so what we can do is we can actually just wrap this in a calculate here, and then we're going to modify the filter context just like we did before with our original measure. So I'm going to steal that snippet, update the filter context, and I'll be looking at the entire fiscal year to date, and great, it looks like it works. So we have this 382 value for February, but now looking at March, we also are adding the 25,000, which gets us to the 407 number, which is what we wanted. So exactly how is this working? So if I just kind of step through this, first thing, the calculate is going to modify the existing filter context. So we are going to change the dates, the filter context for the dates, to look at the entire fiscal year, year to date, where the fiscal year starts or ends in March. And then from there, we now have our list of year month sort values up, which is including all of the ones the year to date fiscal year. And then we have now computed the forecast value for each of those months. And because all of our, when we call a measure, there's an implicit calculate written around this measure. This value for the date, month, year sort is going to override any additional, like a filter context that was set for that column, maybe that was modified here. So that's why this is still only giving us month by month the forecast value for that month. And now we can just then sum up all of the months here. Sweet. So measure is not trivial, but not super complex. And it looks like we are able to get the user what they wanted. All right, so this was the first episode, and looking forward to recording more of these in the future. All right, thanks all.